fun. The desk in the Oval Office used to not have a cover on it until FDR was in office. Because FDR did not want anybody to see him in a wheelchair. So he put a cover over the front of the desk, and that was a little door. And John JFK Jr. would be like playing in there. Like, there's
so wait, was he regularly in a wheelchair?
Yeah, actually, they hid it from everybody. FDR didn't want other countries to think that America was weak, so he didn't want to show that their president had polio. He had polio.
Oh.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
No? Yeah, he had polio. Anytime you ever saw him walking up on stage, he always had a guy on the left and the right side of him. Like, basically tying his legs to their legs so that he could walk normal.
I did not know that.
Yep. He didn't wear braces because he didn't want anybody to see it. So, but yeah, you'd see John and Caroline playing around, going to school. There was a preschool and a swimming pool and a treehouse on the White House lawn, which is kind of cool. And you saw them laughing and playing, of course. One of the biggest things he worried about was the Cold War, obviously, and the nuclear war that could happen between the United States and Soviet Union, like you referred to, the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, which he pretty much prevented the world from blowing up.
Good.
That day, he prevented the world from blowing up, but that's one of the theories of why he might have gotten shot.
Okay.
It made us look weak, apparently, because we kind of gave in a little bit. Now, Kennedy was a big proponent of the space program. Obviously, he said the words of, "We will put a man on the moon before the decade is out." You might have heard that in our intro. That awesome intro that I put together, which I'm damn proud of. I thought it was pretty cool. You guys let me know what you think. He wanted Congress to approve a $22 billion spending budget for NASA just for Project Apollo. For the one project. And in today's money, if you're wondering, I did the calculator online once again. $181 billion around. It's $181.2 billion. That's insane. Now, the Bay of Pigs incident. On January 1st, 1959, a young Cuban nationalist named Fidel Castro drove his guerrilla army into Havana and overthrew General Batista, who died in 1973. Batista was the nation's American-backed president, so basically we were a fan of Batista. Castro went in and killed his ass, so we were pissed. Finally, April 1961, the CIA launched what its leaders believed would be the definitive strike, a full-scale invasion of Cuba by 1,400 American-trained Cubans who had fled their homes when Castro took over.
But did that happen?
We'll see here. However, the invasion did not go well. The invaders were badly outnumbered by Castro's troops, and they surrendered after less than 24 hours of fighting.
That's my kind of
JFK, this is one of the reasons that they ended up losing, and it was a really dumb mistake by JFK.
Whoops.
And I normally don't talk shit about this guy, but it was really stupid what he did. He forgot about the time zones.
Oh.
So he was going to send backup. He sent backup an hour late.
Whoopsie.
By then, the nationalists basically were all dead.
They slaughtered them all.
Oh god, yeah. But no Americans were killed in there because we had convinced a bunch of Cubans to fight our shit for us.
Cute.
Alright, other than his presidency, we're going to get into some of his personal shit.
Personal life.
We're going to get into JFK's fuck buddies. Here's a list of JFK's fuck buddies.
You should probably call them mistresses.
Fuck buddies. Marilyn Monroe. Mary Pinchot.
Meyer.
Mary. We'll just call her Mary Minor.
Mary Meyer.
Mary Meyer. Probably a slut. The most famous one, obviously, is Marilyn Monroe. But Mimi Alford, Jill Cohen, and Priscilla Ware. the majority of these people had something to do with political stuff. They always had something to do with Washington. Miss Marilyn Monroe was just a hottie he met in Hollywood. So,
and this all happened while he was married to Jackie.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if all of it happened when he was married to Jackie, but the majority of it did happen while he was married to Jackie. So.
Yeah, I would have locked your ass out of the White House, just so you know.
No shit, right? I'm really surprised that that didn't happen. I'm surprised the Clintons are still fucking together to this day.
I don't even think they are.
I think they are.
I think they just tolerate each other. I don't think they live together.
I don't know. I guess I haven't checked in on old Billy Bill. I like Bill. All right, we're going to get into Joseph Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy, if you remember the wrestler. Mr. Kennedy, he was a shitty wrestler. Okay, Joseph Kennedy, born in Boston, Massachusetts on September 6th, 1888. Joseph Patrick Kennedy, and he was the son of Mary Hickey and Patrick Joseph Kennedy.
So where does he fall in the line then? Is he JFK's brother or son?
Oh.
Who is he?
That's JFK's dad.
Oh, okay.
He was born in 1888, so yeah.
Okay.
It's JFK's dad.
Good to know.
Yep. He grew up in East Boston, and he attended Catholic school until 8th grade, and he went to Harvard. He took a significant business step when he invested in the company Columbia Trust, which was a bank that his father had helped start, was ailing, and his stockbrokers were on the verge of selling out. This was somewhere between 1912 and 1914. He got involved in Hollywood shortly after this. He was involved in making movies and stuff like that. He grew his fortune. This is the greatest. This is the greatest. He basically grew his fortune with the distribution.
Of what? The anticipation's killing me, tell me.
He grew his fortune in the distribution rights for Scotch whiskey.
Okay.
He was a rum runner.
Oh, right.
Basically, he wasn't a rum runner. Do you know what a rum runner is?
Not necessarily.
It's basically how NASCAR got started.
Okay.
They needed to soup up cars to get across the Canadian border with whiskey or rum or whatever, rum runners, and so they could outrun the cops.
Oh, so like Fast and the Furious kind of shit.
Yeah, but in 1920. It's kind of crazy. But that's what he grew most of his fortune on. But before that, in October...
And this was the Catholic guy that went to Harvard?
Yep. And very Catholic, because on October 7th, 1914, he married Miss Rose Kennedy, and 3 out of the 9 children that they had, 3 of them ended up being politicians, career politicians. And it was JFK, RFK, and Mr. Ted Kennedy, which he died in 2009. And not obviously, I guess, if you don't know, RFK died in 1968. He only died 5 years after JFK. He was actually younger than JFK when he died. He was 8 years younger than JFK. He was born in 1925. Like I said, he grew his fortune in the distribution of Scotch whiskey. And this is a very interesting tidbit. In 1941, Mr. Joe Kennedy thought his daughter, Miss Rosemary, was a little too promiscuous and decided she needed a lobotomy. So they took her in and got her a lobotomy.
Okay, so you're being too big of a whore, so we're just going to scramble your brains, okay?
Exactly. What's kind of ironic, though, is she's one of the last ones to die.
Oh my.
She died in 2005 at 86.
But was she like a vegetable?
Oh, yeah. So they lobotomized the shit out of her.
Yeah, quality of life is bullshit at that point.
And like I said, he was the ambassador of the United Kingdom. He was notorious for being an anti-Semite, which means that he hated Jews, and he used to use the words kike and sheeny all the time. He has some interesting quotes from Harvey Clemmer, who was one of Kennedy's embassy aides, apparently, over there. He said, quote, this is Kennedy, quote from Kennedy apparently, "Some individual Jews are all right, Harvey, but as a race, they stink."
Oh my gosh.
"They spoil everything they touch." End of quote. Yeah, he was a pretty big anti-Semite, and he was known to have ties to the Nazi Party. And he actually met with a Herbert von Dirksen, the German ambassador to the United Kingdom in London. Dirksen claimed on his return to Berlin that Kennedy told him it was not so much the fact that we want to get rid of the Jews that was so harmful to us, but rather the loud clamor with which we accompanied the purpose. Kennedy himself fully understood our Jewish policy. So basically he understood why they were burning Jews.
Oh my gosh.
JFK, like I said, Joe Kennedy was a pro-Hitler, pro-Nazi kind of guy. He hated the Jewish mafia, and it was only because of him being a Nazi sympathizer. And in May of 1939, Nazi Germany had already gobbled up Austria and Czechoslovakia. The British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and Foreign Secretary Lord Halifax had abandoned the notion that Hitler could be appeased. Not so Joseph Kennedy. The future presidential patriarch and then U.S. ambassador to Great Britain had gone rogue. He went by himself, and he ignored the wishes of FDR, the president at the time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he met with Helmuth Horvath, a top Nazi economic advisor in London, to discuss a way to forestall World War with a large payoff in gold. He basically tried to bribe all of Germany. Now, Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald, is he a patsy? Is he not a patsy? Is he gay? He probably wasn't, but we'll go through this. Lee Harvey Oswald was born on October 18, 1939 in New Orleans, Louisiana to Margaret and Robert Oswald Sr. Following his husband's death in an unknown year, I didn't put a year down.
Following her husband's death, because you just made him gay.
Ha! Ha ha! Leaving that in.
Okay.
Following her husband's death, Margaret Oswald sent Lee and his two brothers off to an orphanage, and she remarried a few years later and decided to take the children back and move to the Bronx in New York.
I could feel some resentment there.
No shit.
Here, kids, I don't want you.
That was a common thing with Lee Harvey Oswald, that he did not really respect his mother, and I
could see
why. Exactly.
Justifiable.
He started getting into socialist literature at the age around high school, stuff like that. In 1956, he joined the U.S. Marines while he was getting into all this socialist stuff, so it's kind of weird that he actually joined the Marines. And he was a better than average marksman, everybody. A better than average marksman. There's so many people out there that say he was a horrible shot. How the hell did he do? He was actually a really good shot. He was just court-martialed twice in 1958 for having an illegal weapon and displaying violent behavior, which, in all honesty, I believe that's a setup. I mean, it would be kind of a perfect thing to make him look bad, would be saying that he had illegal weapons and he was displaying violent behavior. His military service ended the following year because of these incidences. And then, almost immediately after, he arranged a trip to Moscow, where he informed Russian authorities that he wanted to move to the Soviet Union and become a citizen, and they denied his ask for citizenship because they thought he was a possible spy. They monitored him really closely before they decided not to, because the KGB don't fuck around. They're like Wu-Tang. You don't fuck with that. You know what the KGB is?
No.
It's basically their intelligence agency.
Okay. So like CIA?
Imagine the CIA if they were Russian.
Sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, no shit, right? He's a spy. Kill him. Now, Oswald...
That's a terrible impersonation.
Oswald wed Marina Persakova in April of 1961. Dissatisfied with the quality of life in the Soviet Union, Oswald ended up returning in June of 1962 to the U.S. and took up residence in Dallas. And he